friends or heard of or looked up someone trying shrooms? How many of you have even gone online to look up my ayahuasca experience, but the Black version though? And how many of you have actually come across these deep restorative healing journeys in the Amazon rainforest, in Mexico, even in places like Africa? What if I told you that we can actually experience those exact type of ceremonies right here in Atlanta, Georgia? Blessings and abundance. My name is Miley Marie Estella Francis, and today we will be discussing the type of calling that guides people to deep restorative healing, the kind of healing that will never make you pick up a cigarette again, the kind of healing that will never make you cry yourself to sleep because of anxiety again, and the type of healing that will never allow you to overthink yourself into a depressive state again. This is the type of healing that white people have the privilege of reclaiming, yet Black and brown people are persistently criminalized for. Unlike conventional treatments, traditional medicines such as ayahuasca, psilocybin, and peyote have the potential to treat deep-seated trauma and emotional blockages. This is why psychoactive herbal medicine can be administered to Georgia patients experiencing stress, anxiety, and PTSD in a safe and ceremonial setting over the course of a year-long program. By the end of this talk, I hope that you'll understand how these sacred medicines can be used to treat these anxieties, depressions, PTSD, and even addiction. Now, I'm not suggesting that you try it unless you really want to, but what I am suggesting is that whenever you do hear these people's experience, and whenever you do hear about someone trying these herbs, that you don't automatically call them woo-woo or a flower child. Just understand that they simply share this calling. Psychedelics like ayahuasca, psilocybin, and peyote have been around longer than our grandparents' lives. In fact, the National Library of Health can trace the usage of these herbal remedies back over 1,000 years to the Aztec in the Amazon forest and beyond. In 2017, the National Library of Health also published a study done by the Global Drug Survey, who conducted an online cross-sectional study. This survey reported that ayahuasca had the highest levels of psychological well-being out of all drugs administered and used recreationally in America. Now, what I can say is that we have made some progress. On April 7, 2025, New Mexico became the first state to legalize medicinal psilocybin through legislation following Oregon and Colorado. The U.S. Department of Health is also actively working towards establishing a regulated program by December 2027. This program will allow licensed providers to administer psilocybin to all qualifying patients, including minors. All patients who are experiencing conditions such as treatment-resistant anxiety, depression, stress, and even substance abuse disorders. A 9-member advisory board is tasked with the job of overseeing the implementation with very outlined roles to ensure their effectiveness. These 9 members are required to have diverse backgrounds, specifically indigenous backgrounds. Now, furthermore, patients are required to follow up with a 6-month to year-long program so that they can reflect, integrate, and learn from their experiences so that they can measure their growth as individuals. The Temple of Umi, located less than 10 minutes from Clark, Atlanta, is a nonprofit organization that can address this need for healing through an indigenous framework. If you or somebody you love is experiencing the type of persistent stress and anxiety that burdens your day-to-day life, here is another solution that you may not have thought of. Start by calculating how far the Temple of Umi is from your home. If it is within a comfortable distance, I suggest that you schedule an in-person evaluation. If not, I suggest that you schedule an online evaluation. After that, I suggest that you ask yourself, how can I benefit from indigenous health care? If sitting with an herb such as ayahuasca, peyote, or even iboga resonate with you, I suggest that you go through the 6 stages of ceremony. If not, I recommend that you still go through the 6 stages of ceremony just without a psychoactive herb, still going through the follow-up post-ceremonial care. This will ensure that not only can you continue your healing, but that you will be able to measure your growth and success given the time frame learning from an indigenous culture outside of one that might be your own. This call to action is less about the psychedelic herbs themselves and more about the preservance of native and indigenous culture. So what's with the stigma? There is no justice in isolating members of our community. As we move towards adopting psychedelic treatments in the mainstream, we must do so with the utmost respect for the cultures that they came from. In fact, these traditions are able to offer us insight that Western medicine simply has never been able to. This means we must come together as citizens of Atlanta, Georgia, to protect, preserve, and sustain these communities of healers. We can support these communities with our contributions and donations, as well as by being a voice of advocacy so that the government continues to provide legal frameworks that ensure the safety of participants as well as psychedelic research. The healing of individuals and society is not just about new science and medicine. It's about understanding the knowledge and honoring the knowledge that came before us so that we can navigate unfamiliar territories with safety and with respect. So let's together ensure that the psychedelic renaissance is one that uplifts and inspires people to research indigenous traditions, because true healing is rooted in wisdom passed down through generations. Thank you all so much for listening, and I ask that you please consider doing your research into psychedelic medicine and into indigenous culture so that you guys can understand how psychedelic medicine can help us transform and evolve our understanding of mental health and well-being. Peace and blessings, Ashe.